Please chant the Mangalacharan. Please chant the Mangalacharan together.
Prabhavati jagato
Anekava sukhaya sahideva
Vishama Vishadhato Anekavatra Spogi Sarvajnana Prasutir Bhujaga Parikara Pritaye Yasya Nityam Devo Hi Shahaso Vavyat Sita Vimala Tanur Yoga Do Yoga Yukta
Om
Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gently bow your head down. Bring yourself to the class. Prepare yourself for the session. When you're ready, gently lift your head up. Open your eyes. Extend your eyes. Namo Namah. Hari Om. Namaskaram. We will continue on the Sutra number 30. Sati Mule Tadvipako Jatyayur Bhoga. Do you recall what we studied in the last class?
different type of karma.
Karmas, yes. So this sutra is dedicated to karmas. Let's progress. I will finish the entire bhashya in Sanskritam first and then we will see the meaning. Drushta janma vedaniyas tvek vipakara ambi bhoge hetutvat dvivipaka arambiva ayur bhoga hetutva annidashvara vanna hushvadvata iti klesha karma vipaka anubhavam itim abhimastu vasana bhiranti dakala sammurta अच्छिदमिदं चित्तं चित्रीकृतमिव सर्वतो मत्स्यजालं ग्रन्थाभिर्वाततमित्येत अनेक भवपूर्विका वासनाः यस्वयं कर्माशय एष एवे भाविक उक्त इति ये संस्कार स्मृतिहेतवस्ता वासनास्ताश्च अनादिकालेन इति. So this paragraph is saying that the immediate opposite of vasanas is samskara. And how are the vasanas for a being? Like a fish net which is knotted. If it is to be visualized, how is our karmic life which builds? The karmas build individual state of maya for us. Our karmas. See, if we try to understand this, we realize that our karmas create the illusion for us. And what kind of karmas? The kleshas particularly. And if we try to visualize that karmic net, how is it? Just like that of a fish net, says this verse. Yastva savika bhavika karmashaya saha niyati vipakascha iti. Tatra drushta janma vedaniyasya niyata vipakasya vayam niyamo natva drushta janma vedaniyasya नियत विपाकास्य कस्मात् यो यदृष्ट जन्म वेदनीयो नियति विपाकास्य त्रयी गतिः कृत्य विपाकास्य नाशः प्रधान कर्मण्या वापगमनं वा नियत विपाक प्रधान कर्माणाम् अभिभूतस्य वा चिरमवस्थितानम् इति. तत्र कृतस्य विपाकस्य नाशो यथा शुक्ल कर्मोदयादिहैव नाशः कृष्णस्य यत्रे ददम् उक्तम् द्वै हे वै कर्माणि वेदति वै पापकस्यो राशिः पुण्यकृतो अपहन्ति तदिच्छस्व कर्माणि सुकृतानि कृतम् एव ते कर्मकवयो वेदयन्ते प्रधान कर्मण्या वापगमन् यत्रेद उक्तम् स्यात्व कल्प संस्कारः सपरिहारः सप्रत्यवमर्षे कुशलस्य नापक कशलस्य यालं कस्मात् कुशलं हि मे गृहीतन्यदस्ति यत्रायं वापगतः सर्वे गप्य उपसर्गम् अल्पं करिष्यति इति. नियत विपाक प्रधान कर्मण्णा अभिभूतस्य वा चिरमवस्थानं कथमिति अदृष्ट जन्म वेदनीयस्यैव नियति विपाकस्य कर्मणः समानम्. मरण अभिव्यक्त कारणम् उक्तम् नत्वा दृष्ट जन्म वेदनीयस्य नियति विपाकस्य यत्वा दृष्ट जन्म वेदनीयम् कर्माण्य विपाकातं निमित्तिम अस्य न विपाकम अभिमुखम करोति इति तद्विपिकास्यैव देशकाल निमित्त नवधारण्यादियं कर्म गतिर विचित्र दुर्विजान चेति न चोत्सर्ग पवाद अन्नी वृत्तिर इति एक भविकः कर्माशयो अनुज्ञातः इति. So this was half of the sutra, and other half we have already seen. Perhaps the longest sutra by sage Patanjali discussing karma. So what we began in the last session, we discussed about karmas. We are going to conclude it today. So yes, what all do you recall from the last session about karmas? We discussed that at the time of death, all the karmas are observed, and these karmas together propel us into the new life. So any very big good thing also that happens to us, all karmas come collectively and push something greater. When karmas are together, any experience becomes highlighted for us. So anything good also to happen in our life, they are like those points where many karmas, collective karmas come together and they give us the good fruit, and many papa karmas also come together and they give us the fruit. Yes, and we saw in the last session that there are opportunities given to every seeker to bring about a change in this karmic cycle. I hope you have gone through the previous session once so that we can connect further from today. Now, you can mention one line. Karmas can only fructify if kleshas are present. For karmas to be fructified, kleshas need to be present. At the time of all that I read in Sanskritam, all that we heard, what did it mean? It meant karmas can bear fruit only if kleshas exist. Second, at the time of death, only gross body is destroyed, not the subtle body. So at the time of death, whatever is your state of mind, it is carried forward to the next. So what happens at the time of death? Only the gross body is destroyed, not the chitta. It remains as it is. The subtle body is transformed, but the gross body is destroyed. So therefore, we see some people are very noble as children. And in the later stages of life, they show a lot of beastly qualities. Now see, there is a contradiction. First half of the life has been very, very noble of a person. And second half of the life is showing what? Beastly qualities. So what happens in this case? There is a contradiction in the karmas. So one birth will not give both of these results together. There is a guarantee that there should be two births for sure. Which one will come first? Which one will have the fruit? The beastly qualities, if they are at the time of death, what will happen? The immediate next life will be with the same beastly tendencies and an environment which will help the individual to exhaust those tendencies. And what happened to the one good deeds done? They will wait until there is adequate time, environment and samskara in the chitta for them to reflect. So one good deed for such a person who had done maybe good deeds in the first half of the life, and second part of the life was engaged in doing a lot of beastly actions. In the next birth, such a person who is going through extreme torment, the moment he or she decides to be on the path of spiritual progress, what happens? It starts bringing the fruit of the first half of the life, which the penance or noble deeds were done. So such a person just makes a small effort, but immediately the doorway is opened for all the past karmas to be fructified. Just take a moment and reflect on this. You can make a note of this. How the karma gati works. What is the karma gati? The speed of karma. You can make a note. Clustered karmas cannot coexist. Clustered karmas. Clustered opposite karmas also you can mention. Clustered opposite karmas will not coexist. The two sets of samskaras will require 2 distinct births for fructification of the karma. You can write an example, maybe noble deeds done, so celestial birth and animal birth. Now, some samskaras this person has, the kleshas, which is going to give an animal birth. Now, how can fruit of a celestial birth and fruit as the animal birth can coexist? It will not. So, one which is lower and one which is at the time of death, at the subtle body, will have the first preference. So, celestial birth and animal birth, they cannot coexist. Now, what happens in this case? Stored karmas will have 3 results. The first line we had written in notes, karmas can bear fruit only if kleshas are present. So this is a mandatory requirement we see for karmas to fructify. Presence of the kleshas. Which are the pancha klesha? Avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha and abhinivesha. So what happens in this situation? Make a note here. 3 outcomes of karmas which have been stored. First outcome, these karmas are destroyed by tapaha. First, sorry, not by tapaha, by going through them. First outcome, the karmas are destroyed by bhoga, jatirayur bhoga. So, by going through those karmas, they are destroyed. That is a natural course. First outcome. Second outcome of the karma is, if it is a weak karma, it merges with a more dominant similar type of karma. If it is a weak karma, it is not stored for the next life, but it merges in the present life only with the more dominant karma. And third, it is overshadowed, like in the case of a person who did first good deeds in the first half of the life. So those good deeds, they became overshadowed because at the time of death and the most recent karma, the state of mind were beastly karma. So they become overshadowed.
Sorry, ma'am. I don't know this word, overshadow. Can you say it with another word?
Overshadow, dormant, sleeping.
Dormant,
waiting,
thank you.
Waiting karmas. So because of any strong karma, the maybe now in the next birth, when such a person takes birth, the tendency is beastly. But what is hidden inside and what is waiting to be fructified? The good samskaras. So they are overshadowed by what? By the present dominant samskaras. Therefore, what we see, whenever we meet a person, there is 100% chance of sainthood in that person. Any person has 100% seed of sainthood. And being in spiritual life means you become the saint and you see the saint in everyone. Only the one who is the saint will see the saint in everyone. One who is undergoing the sins or kleshas will see the sins everywhere else. So 100% chance of each individual that there is, in the moment you see, oh, this person is beastly. That means right now some karma is dominant, but since he's in Manusha Yoni, if this person had to be very beastly, might as well would have had an animal birth. If there is human birth, that means the bad and good are almost equal. It's not that the bad karmas or papa karma are on the rise. So what we do, therefore in human life, we try to bring out these saintly qualities of a person, the saintly nature, the subtle stored karmas. So whenever we meet a saint or whenever we visit places of spiritual importance, and some small activity starts opening the door of all the past good karmas, and our sadhana continues. Ji Puruji, question?
Ma'am, what about people who have created massacres, like in history? What about those people? How would
For
karmas
the,
apply in that example? Where you said that everybody, so the dormancy of karmas, but these are extreme examples. There are not many of them. There's only few, but they've caused significant
havoc,
amount of havoc. Yes.
right? So when we look at the life story of King Ashoka, yes, so we see the one who causes trouble is in more pain. The one who dies, maybe King Ashoka was the medium or reason for the death of many other soldiers, for example. And everybody is going to eventually die, we saw. Just the way of death is going to be different. The medium of death is going to be different. So they ended their life and they moved as per their subtle stored karmas. The Jiva got the Gati. But now King Ashoka, firstly, is in the Kshatriya Dharma. That is, when you are in the role of the king, what happens? Vedic society goes by your dharma. What is the position? From where you are incurring this karma? Are you sitting in some ashram and then doing a massacre, or were you on the battlefield and it was your duty for the kingdom, or you did something for so and so had to be received? Or neither you were a king nor there was the need of massacre, it was genocide on your part. In all the three cases, there is mass death. But since the intention about each is different, there are going to be different outcomes. Now, such a person is going to take numerous lifetimes. In the last session, we discussed that once we listen to the Brahman, that is the Atman, once we listen to the consciousness, the knowledge of self from the Guru, we say there are few births left, maybe 3 or 4 for me. But when that 3 or 4 is there, when I'm devoted, the moment I listen from the Guru, from there until the time of death, there is a constant flow of the same vrittis towards Brahma Jnana, towards consciousness. Only from the time I started till death, if I am in continuity of that, then what will happen? The next birth will be in accordance, less, because I will progress on to there. But if I am somebody who was on the spiritual path and in the later years of life, I create a mistake or I do something which is unacceptable. Now, in that case, do you think only 3 or 4 lives will be waiting for me? No, I open an entire new transaction of going through avidya, again the pancha, because one moment of weakness of avidya, all these kleshas which I had, maybe they were not dagda bija. They were weak. Tanu Karan was there. We saw the term Tanu means what? They had reduced. So maybe sometimes a saint in the company or the environment of desire, this Tanu or very tiny forms of vasanas inside in the chitta were brought forward. And in that moment of weakness, this person became a yoga brashta. Means being a yogi, did not walk on the path of righteousness. So then, because of this, more births are added. Again, we'll have to be exhausting those. Again, after exhausting those, we'll do one small penance in a lifetime, where this lifetime, 30, 40 years, whatever was spent in sadhana will be realized. So waiting time from the present birth to the point of liberation only goes on increasing based on the transactions we open. So in case of genocides and massacre, we see Ashoka, after killing a number of people in India, he embraced Buddhism and entire life devoted to the spread of Buddhism. Now, because of this, what happened? The next life for such a person during the end time was very, very spiritual. But the vasanas of massacre, he has to exhaust them in the next birth by tapa, for sure. So opportunities will be given even to the one who has done the highest of sins. Again and again, opportunities given. Sometimes you meet a person, sometimes you are led to a certain place, sometimes you simply come across a certain word which brings forward all the latent vasanas which are stored and samskaras which are stored. Ji, Ranj.
Ma'am, Sage Valmiki also comes in this example.
Yes, Sage Valmiki also. All of the great seers, see, when we are on the spiritual path, this is our second birth. The first half of our life was dependent on the past birth. And one single moment in this life changes and we feel we are renewed. We are no more the same person that we are. We don't know how things are happening by their own course. So it is said when you are in spirituality, you are reborn. It's your second birth. The first half of the life is nullified at any point of time that you start. Once you listen to Brahma Jnana only, spiritual may not necessarily mean karma kanda or doing a lot of Vedic havan. I'm very specific when I say Atma Jnana, Brahma Jnana, Aham Brahmasmi. When you listen about the Purusha and Prakriti, only that moment is only spirituality from my perspective and the yogic perspective, because this is moksha shastras. These are what? Moksha shastras. So the goal is moksha. We are walking towards moksha. So any scripture which talks about moksha, we only take that as the base from where we start our spiritual journey. Any other terms under this may not be spirituality. If there is doing certain sadhana to attain something, that may not be spirituality, but mukti. If it is dharma, artha, kama, not spirituality. If it has moksha, then we are on the path of spiritual progress.
So, ma'am, we are saying
So
that.
what we see here?
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes,
I was
yes, go
saying
on.
that, ma'am, from wherever we start in our life, I mean, after birth, but in our lifespan, we get at least one chance to change our path in life, right?
Three times we get the chance.
But we should be observant to choose it, choose that two path.
Yes.
One of the path.
One of the path will bring us vairagya. That means such a trauma or such an incident will happen that will propel us to, leave. Like I said, you move the blanket suddenly to remove off the dust which is on top. So one which will bring us vairagya. Second, which will help us meet our guru. And third, where we'll attain samadhi. These three are marking moments.
So, ma'am, all the jiva gets this chance.
All jivas get the chance.
The reason not everyone understand it is because their atma is not yet ready for it. It's not this birth, or maybe it's next birth.
Yes. See what happens? A yogi looks at pleasure also and in the form of pain. But a bhogi who is in the samsara is like a person who's mixing poison with honey and tasting. Is consuming poison but saying it's tasting sweet. And what happens for a yogi? A yogi sees, oh, the same family, the same spouse, the same children, same car, all of these are also my source of suffering. So a yogi looks at life as a life of suffering mixed with happiness. Whereas a bhogi looks at life only from the perspective of happiness. So as long as they are not aware of it, they cannot do anything about it. Therefore, we place such lot of emphasis on human birth first, where you have understanding of life. And second, in the human birth, in Manushya Janma having Manushyatva. And in Manushyatva having Mumukshutva. So Manushya, Manav Janma is human birth. Manushyata or Manavta is humanity. And Mumukshu is one who walks towards moksha. All three start with Ma. Manushya, Manavta, Manushya, Muksha. All three. Or Manushya, Manushyatva, Mumukshutva. You can write this. Manushya. So many people are Manushya. But we say, oh, you don't have a simple humanity in you. That means they don't have Manushyatva. They are just from Pashu Yoni, from animal birth, they have just come to the human birth, maybe for the first time. So they will take another few births to learn humanity, compassion. Therefore, in human life, they will have all the beastly nature, beastly tendencies, heavy, very, very tamasic nature. Why? Because it's just into first time the human birth. After births and births, human birth, depending on their karmas, whenever they get the next, it's not guaranteed that after first human birth, you get next also human birth. If you're born in a beastly state, born in darkness, walking towards darkness, you are going to end up in darkness until you again have some kind of karmic transaction. So these three.
Thank you, ma'am.
So based on the kleshas, there are three outcomes. One, it can be destroyed. Have you noted this? Second, it will be merged with the dominant karma. And third, it will be overshadowed or dormant. Now, the one which is dormant or overshadowed, how to exhaust those? First got exhausted by bearing it. Bearing the pain exhausted the pain. Second, it got merged with the dominant karma of that point. And third, it was overshadowed. Therefore, the solution was performance of good deeds. Only for the third kind of karma, which has been in dormancy, overshadowed. One good karma, like I mentioned, you just do one good deed, the past starts opening. Yogic or spiritual practices. Any yogic or spiritual practice, any path of yoga, walk, Jnana yoga, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, any spiritual practice at this point helps you open the doors. This is the solution for the third. So we actually have three outcomes. One is to bear whatever the karma is and be happy. Oh, okay, one day exhausted. I'm still in Sthita Pragya. I still have the knowledge of life and I'm observing life. That what kind of karma this is based on the kleshas. So, for example, one day in the morning I'm irritated. That same day, anybody who gets me irritated. What does it mean? That klesha I started the day with. So everything else around it also starts bringing fuel to it. So one is by exhaustion. Second, one weaker merges with the stronger. And third, by doing any spiritual deed. Now here, just write a question. Can bad karma, like bad karma can be exhausted by good karma? Is a person's good karma destroyed by bad karma? I will repeat again. Like bad karma or papa karma, technically speaking, papa karma का क्षय होता है, is destroyed by good karma or punya karma. Similarly, is punya karma or good karma, whatever I have done in this lifetime, का क्षय होता है, is destroyed by one mistake? The first case is possible. The answer is first case is very possible, that bad karmas can be destroyed by the good karmas. But good karmas cannot be destroyed by the bad karma. Whatever small bad karma you have done, you face it as the second outcome. It is always the second outcome. Mention it. If you have done a lot of good deeds and there is very less store of bad karmas, you face them as what? A second outcome to the greatest or highest good karma. Which means they cause interference in good karma. Obstacles in good karma. Smaller papa karmas, what they do? They start causing obstacles and interference. So it becomes an interfering karma, not a blocking karma for the good karmas. for today? This is fine. I can take questions because there are still some part of it remaining, which we will conclude this sutra. We are only talking about karmas from last 2 sessions. This is the 3rd, and tomorrow we will be having the 4th. So 4 sessions for this one sutra, which discusses karmas at length in detail. Ji, yes, we can take questions.
You say that bad karma can be exhausted by good karma. So this we are talking about same life, right? Same life, same birth, one birth.
No. Bad karmas, whatever you have done. So we talk about King Ashoka. He felt somewhere, oh, it's a papa karma I've done. Therefore, he started walking the path of spirituality and he did a lot of donations and dana, for example. So that dana was what? As a guilt, formed out of guilt. It was not purely good. So it didn't give effect immediately that birth. It first exhausted the papa and whatever was remaining in the next.
Okay. So, ma'am, Sage Valmiki, he was born as a robber for first half of his life, and then because of another sage, I don't remember, but then he changed and he took a spiritual path, and then he devoted his life on it, so towards it. So his bad karma will be destroyed. Would have been like how it.
If
gone.
he's attaining samadhi in that birth, if he makes it dagda bija by tapas, what is the solution for it? Only one solution. Therefore, the yoga, practice of yoga becomes highly important because only in the practice of yoga, you can make it dagda bij, roast whatever have been the previous karmas by tapaha. What is tapaha? Dvanda sahanam. Going through the divinities and rising. Upasana. Therefore, that is the reason yogic practices are so important. And that's the reason all the Hatha yogis, what they do, they try to have the karmas which are overshadowed, dagda bija, burnt in the fire of tapas. Only the practice of yoga can ensure whatever have been the good and bad, both are destroyed in the same. In the state of samadhi, equanimity of mind. When the mind is equanimous, we see our own samskaras. We see which were our past births. We acknowledge them and we free ourselves.
Okay.
Like the water becomes clear, you see the bottom pebbles in the lake. Similarly, in the state of samadhi, the stored latent karmas are seen by the person. Okay, this has been my journey.
Sure.
Bhagavad Gita has very beautiful in chapter 4 in Bhagavad Gita. So here in Yoga Sutra, chapter 2 discusses the karma, and chapter 4 in the Bhagavad Gita talks about the same, but it has one more additional angle to it, perspective to it. Akarmic deeds, neither good nor bad. Do karma yoga, it says. Although I'm just quoting Bhagavad Gita, it's not a part of Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Bhagavad Gita says, do karma yoga to roast all the pending samskaras. Offer every action as a service to God. See God in every person. See the Brahman consciousness in every person. What you're doing for others is what you're doing for yourself. Just know this. Because everything is going to come around to you. Whatever you put out here is going to come to you, it says in the Bhagavad Gita. So it gives another way. Yoga Sutra says, okay, only attainment of samadhi is one way to observe and roast those latent, the samskaras which have been dormant. But the Bhagavad Gita has one more view to it. It says you can perform karma yoga, because karma yoga, people may or may not treat you correctly. You do good, still you will not be treated correctly. So those moments where the ego dissolves further, when it comes from the Bhagavad Gita perspective, dissolution and breaking down of the ego itself signifies a lot of karmas have been destroyed. That's a slight difference between these two important texts. Now, last part of the karma, we'll talk about tapatraya, adhyatmic, adidevik, and adibhautik. In this sutra only, but we'll have to take it another session because this is different, right? That will be slightly different for understanding. Yes, we'll have questions. Ji Purush.
Can
Ma'am, I'll wait. I'll let others ask.
Yes, I got. Yes, you can go ahead.
so human life, it's only given for good karma.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
That was the question.
Life is?
Like human life.
Sorry, help me. I couldn't hear you. Mhm.
I said, is it human life given only for good karma? I mean, if we
Good,
are
good
doing bad
question.
karma, it's not possible to have human life, right?
Yes, if there are papa karmas, beastly tendencies, one will not have a human life easily. That's for sure. But for a yogi, there is no good and bad.
Okay.
Every action needs to be done without harming anyone. That is karma yoga. Or every action needs to be to facilitate other person around us. So for a yogi, again understand there is no good and bad karma. After you're on the path of spirituality, how should be our actions? Our every action should facilitate somebody else's spiritual path or facilitate them in some other way. So our Sanatan Dharma is a caretaking society. How is this Sanatana way of life? When we talk about this land, Hindu not as a religion, but Hindu as a way of life. It is on mutual interdependence. Each one has to care for every person at different parts of life. You have to follow your kartavya, dharma. Saying merely that I have affection towards you versus having the weightage of the actions of affection is mandatory in Sanatan Dharma. You cannot merely by words declare something. You are compulsorily to have it with the action. Only then it is said to be correct. So this action, okay, your parents, towards your parents, you are duty bound. Certain actions you do out of respect. So towards family also duty bound. Friend, being a friend is not easy in Sanatan Dharma. Even if you know your friend is doing wrong, you can only advise. We see karna, but you still have to be with your friend. That means being a friend is also sharing their karmic transaction. We have to be very, very careful when we say there is friendship or mitratva, because you're also sharing their karmic transaction.
Thank you.
Yes. So good deeds means do deeds to facilitate for others. Everything you do, it's for others. For anybody, you don't know who's that person who will need whatever you're doing right now, but it is for someone in this creation. So we don't have to do the right thing. We have to save ourselves from doing the wrong things. No pressure to be taken. Oh, am I doing the good deed? Only save yourself from doing papa karma, that's it. And you don't have to take the responsibility of the world. In this lifetime, just take the responsibility of freeing yourself. Mukti, moksha. Once you take your own responsibility, you become more responsible for everything else in the world. But if you don't take your own responsibility, there is no responsibility you can handle in the external. This is the teaching of Patanjali's yoga. I hope the karma and its functioning, the net, the fisherman's net and its knots are becoming more clear to us. Reflect on these and then we meet again tomorrow if there are no questions for today. Ji Puruji, yes.
Ma'am, is it fair to relate back to Samadhi Pada while
Yes.
studying this? So, in that case, we learned about the vrittis, the identification of all these vrittis. So, karmas are affected, or rather how do I say this? So the vrittis of viparyaya and vikalpa, which is similar to these kleshas that we've been talking about avidya and asmita. If one simply observes the vrittis and disassociates oneself from them, the karmic life that one has to live, for instance, what has happened in the past continues in the present, and that can't be changed. It has to be lived, like you said, like, you know, has to go through it to be that way. But if one continues to observe and be a witness to those vrittis as they follow, but while they're doing it, the previous karmic transactions are forcing almost new karmas to be. So there's an underlay. There's almost like this. These two things are happening in parallel. So would these new karmas that are now being enacted or performed by virtue of the previous dependencies, would they be then also creating another chain of their own in the future?
Very nice question. So when we say pramana viparaya vikalpa nidra smriti, that is for yoga rudha. Now such a person is observing the vrittis and at the same time functioning in the world. So that functioning merely happens as a response to what is coming in front. But if whatever is the response, it's only contributing to the increase of pramana vritti, where the vairagi is becoming stronger and stronger. You're not becoming desirous. Even if there are past karmas, even if you're functioning through those karmas, you're strengthening the pramana vritti and you're having more dispassion. Then, of course, even if because like the fan switched off, it will continue to move. So with the gati of the karma, you're going through something, but at the level of your subtle awareness, the subtle body is still taking it as a pramana vritti, not as viparyaya or vikalpa, or not even as smriti or memory. So you are observing this, you are aware. That is the work done. Role of all these scriptures is only to make us aware. Really, you don't need anybody to grant moksha. You're knowing yourself. Would we need somebody else to tell us about ourselves, who we are? No. We will only need others to tell us what we are not, who we are not. If they only tell us who we are not, who we are, we easily understand. So no scripture is saying, okay, you only study this, you attain moksha. Or that is your personal experience. It's removing the impediments and obstacles on your path and making way, paving way, showing you the path. Okay, go this after this. So if you're a yoga rudha, you don't need to study about the kleshas. You observe the vrittis, work is done. But if you're a yoga ruksha, then first time you're aware in life. If you're not, people imagine who have not even heard of this knowledge, they're going in, day out through life without the understanding of karmas and what is their transaction in the world, which direction they are heading, and so on. So they are saying, oh, I am suffering. But what is the cause of suffering and how to remove it? They are not interested to know it. All they say that I am suffering, I am suffering, I am suffering. That's the difference between a yogi and a non-yogi. And sometimes we have these people in the family. We don't have to be judgmental. We have to be more loving and compassionate. That I am more fortunate than this person. At least I am aware of where I am going. The loved one of this lifetime has no idea where they are going and where they are taking themselves. I will only try to be patient and see if there is a small teaching moment as long as we interact in this lifetime. I can only be the example and inspiration. Nothing else. Yes, Shivani.
In continuation to what you just said, there are people who are walking through their life, not hurting anyone, but so they are not facilitating someone's journey, but they are doing or making sure they are doing the right thing for themselves. Is not doing something also creating a karmic transaction. Let's say if I want to facilitate someone's journey, I want to get them to this path, and but I'm not able to do so, and it is actually more difficult. So I start to focus on myself rather than bringing them on this path. So not, and if I see that they're doing something which they should not be doing, but I don't feel the authority to see that. So is not doing something and witnessing that in silence is also, does that
No,
also
no, it's
create a
not
karma
causing
on
karma.
my part, or
No karma create, because you know it's coming out of the kleshas. Observe the vrittis from where it is coming. Avidya is the mother of all the kleshas, and all kleshas come together. So as long as there is ignorance, mistakes are going to happen. Take it. As long as there is nobody in the family who studied the shastras or has a guru, they're bound to make mistakes. So we have to be more and more compassionate towards them. We can only be a witness of our life also. Can we change our life? Can we control? No. If we cannot change and control our direction, how we can change and control their direction? We can only be aware of our own life path, and that awareness does 90% of the work for us. And for them, we can only be observant, and if they fall, just be there to give them the hand. If they fall without judgment, just be there to give them. That's your role. That's why you are planted in their life in this lifetime, because you were eventually to be on the spiritual path. Maybe when you met them, you are not on the spiritual path. But eventually, this person was to benefit indirectly from your spiritual learning. Understand this. They had a spiritual learning benefit, but not directly, indirectly through you as the medium. So your role will continue. The entire world, the good deeds you want to do as a volunteer, karma yoga in the world, that karma yoga is reduced to the one person of the family. We will conclude here for today. Please stay with what the discussion we had. Allow the mind to be in the same discussion. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gently bow your head down. Feel grateful for this learning. Thanks, Sage Patanjali, for making this knowledge available to us. When you're ready, gently lift your head up, open your eyes, external. Namaste. Dhanyavada. My pranam to all of you. Thank you for attending this session. We meet again tomorrow.
Thank you.